On February 28th, 1983, two men were scavenging through an empty apartment building at 5635 Clemens Avenue in St. Louis, Missouri, looking for metal to scrap. In the basement, as one of the men flicked a lighter to light a cigarette, the flickering light revealed a horrific sight before them. The body of a young black female lying on her stomach, her hands tied behind her back with red and white nylon rope. She had been sexually assaulted, strangled, then decapitated with a large bladed knife after her death. Her head has never been recovered. She had been killed elsewhere and brought to the vacant building after her murder, due to the lack of blood at the scene. After detectives arrived on the scene, they initially thought she was a prostitute or a drug addict from the Cabane housing projects, an area not far from the crime scene known for that activity. But when they turned her over, it revealed another startling fact. The body was not only not that of a prostitute, but that of a young prepubescent girl, not even a teenager. At the time of her death, she was described as African American, 8 to 11 years of age, 4 feet 10 without her head, or an estimated height of 5 feet 4 with it, making her tall for her age, weighing around 85 to 95 pounds with medium to dark complexion. She was found wearing only a yellow V-neck sweater with red painted fingernails. She was nude from the waist down. Since then, authorities searched high and low for every possible lead. They believe she was possibly from out of state after checking the Missouri school system. They conducted searches, ran ads in every African American newspaper and magazine in the country, corresponded with every state police agency, and did a full anthropological exam and isotope analysis, which was completed by the NCMEC and the Smithsonian Institute. The tests suggest that she was from and spent most of her childhood in Alabama, the Carolinas, Florida, Georgia, Louisiana, Minnesota, Pennsylvania, Tennessee, and even Texas. When the authorities approached psychics, one said her head would be on a boat in the Gulf of Mexico. Another in Florida requested to see her sweater and the nylon bounds, but they were lost in the mail. When it comes to suspects, it was believed the killer was a family member due to the lack of a missing persons report. However, many believe it to be the work of Vernon Brown. Brown was a serial killer who was convicted for the October 24, 1986 murder of 9-year-old Janet Perkins and the March 7, 1985 murder of 19-year-old Sonetta Ford. He was also believed to be responsible for the rape and murder of Kimberly Campbell in 1973. Although questioned extensively, Brown never confessed to any other murder besides the one he was convicted for. He was executed on May 18th of 2005. On April 28th of 2001, the body of a black girl 3 to 5 years old was found decapitated in Kansas City. A connection was ruled out when she was identified as Erica Green on May 5th of 2005. Later, Green's mother and stepfather were convicted in that crime. The victim, called Hope by some, was buried in the Washington Park Cemetery, a historical black but unkept cemetery. When exhumed in 2013, authorities had to use videotape recordings from the 1983 funeral because of the terrible condition it was in. She was then reburied at the Calvary Cemetery, specifically in the Garden of Innocence, where they buried the John and Jane Does. To this day, her identity is still unknown. And here we are at the Calvary Cemetery in St. Louis, Missouri. And right now I'm at the Garden of Innocence. It is a section of the cemetery where abandoned babies and little children are buried. Here's the stone. All the names of all the abandoned children. And when we go to the back of the stone, we will see our Jane Doe, Precious Hope, 1983. She was between the ages of 8 and 11. Nobody knows who she is. And all of these children and these babies, they're buried anywhere from around right where that rock is, a couple feet to my right, till about right over there, right in the middle of your screen. And then it would come out right here. And she doesn't have her own stone, but this is where she was buried. Let's put our thinking caps on for a minute. Anybody out there watching my video, you need to think back to the late 70s, early 80s. Did you have a cousin? Did you have a niece? Did you have a sister? Did you have a friend that you used to play with that she lived across the street from you? Did you go to school with her and one day she disappeared? And you always wondered to yourself, whatever happened to that little girl? Think back, think as long back as you can possibly remember. We need this girl at least to have a grave with her name, her God-given name on it. If anybody has any information on the identity of this girl or the person responsible for this monstrous, horrible murder, give the St. Louis Police Department a call. They are just as of about, I believe, 3 or 4 months ago, been looking at this case. Maybe this girl could have been your friend, could have been a family member. It could even be your daughter.